The sound of heavy machinery woke me from a deep sleep that Saturday morning. I jumped out of bed and rushed to my bedroom window, only to see the unbelievable sight of a backhoe tearing into my custom stone patio. There, in my backyard, stood Barbara Jenkins, our HOA president, pointing and directing workers while clutching her signature clipboard. The patio that had taken me 3 months to build, the one that had been approved by the county but apparently not by Barbara's precious architectural review committee, was being systematically destroyed right before my eyes. I threw on clothes and ran downstairs, bursting through my back door in a fury. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I shouted over the roar of machinery. Barbara turned to me with that smug smile I'd grown to despise over the past year. The machine operator, seeing my rage, cut the engine. "Good morning, Mr. Davidson," Barbara said calmly, as if she wasn't orchestrating the destruction of my property. "I left 3 notices on your door about this unapproved structure. The HOA bylaws clearly state that all exterior modifications require written approval from the architectural committee. Since you failed to comply with removal notices, we're handling it ourselves, as permitted in Section 12 of the covenant." I stood there in shock, watching as thousands of dollars of stonework lay in ruins. "I never received any notices, and this patio was fully permitted by the county," Barbara shrugged. "County permits don't override HOA regulations. You should have read your contract more carefully when you moved in. Oh, and you'll be billed for today's removal service." She gestured to a man in a polo shirt standing nearby. "This is Roger from the Architectural Committee. He's here to ensure the removal meets HOA standards." Roger nodded solemnly, like they were performing some sacred duty instead of trespassing and destroying my property. I noticed several neighbors watching from their yards, none daring to speak up against Barbara and her reign of terror. I took a deep breath. In my 10 years as land commissioner for Montgomery County, I dealt with plenty of difficult people, but Barbara Jenkins took the cake. When I purchased this home 8 months ago, I'd done so quietly, not advertising my position. I wanted normal neighbors, not people treating me differently because of my job. Now I was regretting that decision. "Barbara," I said, my voice dangerously quiet, "do you have a court order authorizing you to enter my property and remove this structure?" She laughed. "We don't need one. The HOA covenant you signed gives us authority to remedy violations after proper notification." I pulled out my phone and started recording. "Please state your full name and position for the record." Barbara rolled her eyes but complied. "Barbara Jenkins, president of Willow Creek Homeowners Association. And you're stating on record that you authorize this entry onto my property and the destruction of my patio without a court order based solely on HOA regulations?" "That's correct," she said confidently. "Section 12 clearly states—" "I'm familiar with Section 12, I interrupted. "I'm also familiar with state property law, which supersedes any HOA covenant. You are currently trespassing and destroying private property." "I'm going to have to ask everyone to leave immediately," Roger stepped forward. "Now see here, Mr. Davidson, we've done everything by the book. If you had simply complied with the notices I never received," I countered. "And even if I had, proper procedure requires a court order before you can enter my property and destroy anything. Barbara knows this, don't you, Barbara?" For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across her face. "I'm giving you 2 minutes to get off my property before I call the sheriff and file charges for criminal trespassing and destruction of property." Barbara's confidence returned. "Go ahead and call. My husband plays golf with Sheriff Thompson every Sunday." I smiled for the first time that morning. "That won't help you today," I turned to address the workers directly. "Gentlemen, I am John Davidson, Land Commissioner for Montgomery County. What's happening here is illegal, and as contractors, you could be held personally liable alongside the HOA for damages. I strongly suggest you leave now." The backhoe operator immediately killed the engine and stepped down from his machine. "I was just told this was an authorized removal," he said, looking nervously at Barbara. "I'm not getting mixed up in anything illegal." "Huh," Barbara's face flushed red. "Don't be ridiculous. He's bluffing." I pulled out my county identification and held it up. "Would you like to take that chance?" The workers began packing up immediately, ignoring Barbara's protests. Neighbors, who had been watching quietly, now moved closer, suddenly interested in the dramatic turn of events. "This isn't over," Barbara hissed at me. "The board will hear about this." "You're right, it's not over," I agreed. But not in the way you think. You've made three critical mistakes today, Barbara. First, you trespassed on my property. Second, you destroyed my permitted patio without legal authority. And third, I paused for effect. You did all this to the person who oversees land use violations for the entire county. The color drained from her face. You're the land commissioner. That's right, the same office that has regulatory oversight of HOA property enforcement actions. I gestured to my destroyed patio. And you've just given me everything I need to open a full investigation into this HOA's practices. Roger quietly backed away, suddenly very interested in leaving. Barbara stood frozen, her clipboard hanging limply at her side. I suggest you go home and prepare your records, I continued. By Monday morning, my office will be issuing subpoenas for all HOA documentation from the past 5 years. Every violation notice, every fine, every bank statement. I'm particularly interested in how the Architectural Committee has been enforcing regulations, selectively perhaps. Barbara's husband, Tom Jenkins, chose that moment to come striding across my lawn. What's going on here? Barbara, are you okay? He placed a protective arm around her shoulders while glaring at me. Your wife just cost your HOA a substantial amount of money, I informed him, and potentially exposed all board members to personal liability. Who do you think you are? He demanded. A neighbor I'd barely spoken to before, Mrs. Castillo from 3 doors down, stepped forward. He's the county land commissioner, Tom, and Barbara just destroyed his county-approved patio. Tom's face showed the first signs of comprehension and worry. There must be some misunderstanding. Barbara was just following HOA procedures. Illegal procedures, I corrected. And now I'm very interested in reviewing all of them. By Monday morning, my office had issued formal requests for all HOA documents. We discovered that Barbara and her architectural committee had been selectively enforcing regulations for years. Homes owned by board members and their friends had unapproved modifications that mysteriously received no violation, while other homeowners faced aggressive enforcement and excessive fines. More concerning were the financial records. The special assessment collected last year for community landscaping had mostly gone to a company owned by Barbara's brother-in-law, which charged 3 times the market rate. The HOA's reserve fund, meant for major repairs, had been depleted through a series of questionable transactions. 3 weeks after my patio was destroyed, we held an emergency neighborhood meeting at the community center. The room was packed, with many homeowners standing along the walls. I presented our findings using clear slides showing the selective enforcement and financial discrepancies. Based on our investigation, I concluded, my office is referring this matter to the district attorney for potential criminal charges against certain board members. Additionally, I've drafted a consent agreement that, if adopted, would prevent further legal action against the HOA as an entity. The consent agreement included restitution for all unfairly collected fines, new election procedures for board members, and mandatory financial audits. It also required Barbara and 3 other board members to resign immediately and never serve on an HOA board again. When the vote came, it was unanimous in favor of the agreement. As Barbara and Tom stormed out of the meeting, Mrs. Castillo approached me with tears in her eyes. They fined me $2,000 last year for planting vegetables in my backyard, she said. I had to take out a loan to pay it, called my garden unsightly and reducing property values. You'll be getting that money back, I assured her, and you can plant whatever you want in your garden now. Over the following months, a remarkable transformation took place in our neighborhood. With new board leadership focused on actual community needs rather than petty enforcement, neighbors began talking to each other again. The community center hosted cookouts and movie nights. Gardens flourished, including mine, which now featured raised vegetable beds alongside my rebuilt patio. 6 months after that fateful Saturday morning, we held a neighborhood BBQ in my backyard. Standing on my new patio, now fully approved by both the county and the reformed HOA, I raised a glass to my neighbors. To community, I said simply. To community, they echoed. As children played on the lawn and neighbors chattered around tables piled with potluck dishes, I caught sight of Mrs. Castillo showing another neighbor how to prune tomato plants. Nearby, the former architectural committee chairman, now reformed, was discussing solar panel installation with a group of interested homeowners. Sometimes, I reflected, it takes a bulldozer to break down the walls between neighbors and build something better. In the strangest way, I had Barbara Jenkins to thank for that. According to local real estate agents, our home values had actually increased since the HOA reforms. Turns out people prefer living in friendly communities rather than restrictive ones. The backhoe operator who had been destroying my patio that morning, he was now at the BBQ too, having been hired to help install a community playground. He raised his glass to me from across the yard with a knowing smile. In the end, Barbara and Tom Jenkins sold their house and moved to another gated community across town. Rumor has it she's already running for their HOA board. Some people never learn, but our neighborhood had learned an important lesson about the difference between enforcing rules and building community, and my new patio was the foundation for that change.